Hey guys, what's happening? All right. How's everybody doing tonight? I'm a little choppy here tonight. My computer didn't want to get online when I pushed the button. All right, am I on here? This looks a little better. All right. So, all right, we got all of our regular players here. Yeah. Pizza from Domino's. Amy, are you serious? Thanks for sharing that. Tim and Candy, they're in the building, not in the house tonight. Hey, Linda. Hey, Deb. Hi, Mike and Tina Bird. The Fenway Court Black Party is up and running at Marge and Doug's house. Hi, Jessens. Yes, Amy, I do believe I know that song. That song you were asking me about. I do believe that I know what it is. Let's see who else we got here. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Jess Mack. Hey, Cheryl. Hey, DW. Daryl Lauf is here. Hi, Daryl. Hi, Ange. Val Cisco, how you doing? Let's see. Miriam Lynch. Hey, Suze. Hey, Joyce Koenig, the party may begin. I also heard that Joyce Koenig got a knee surgery scheduled today, as I see that she mentioned there. And she's excited. And that's good because I think that her history in playing linebacker is going to be greatly extended now. So I'm super excited for her. So, hey, Sherry Lauf. Let me see. You guys haven't messed. All right, you guys didn't mess with Batman today. That's good. Hey, Cheryl. I think I'm getting out of order here. Let's see. J and D. Gene and Daryl, how you doing? And hello, Mr. Joe Sutton. Amy had a rough day. If you had Domino's pizza for supper, how sorry are we supposed to feel for you? So, hey, Audra. Candy Dickey, cataract surgery went well. She's a little tired. Rest those eyes today, Candy. Let's see who else we got here. Anybody else? Ange is in the house. Hey, Crystal. Jess Skinner is here. Good to see you. Who else? Christina's here. Cheryl and Jack are here. Scott and Jan are here. Hi, Rebecca McWinney. Good to see you. Joe Sutton is north of awesome, but just shy of excellent. That's not a bad place to be. Let's see. Margie and Doug, Tim and Candy, and Deb Steinecker are the Fenway Court gang. All right, you guys try to keep it down out there, will you? All right. Are you serious? It's just not gonna do it. I love it when you got stuff planned and technology just decides it ain't gonna do it. So I'm turning my phone off. So there you go. Jess, would those be these lemon bars you're asking about? I'm assuming that these are the lemon bars you're asking me about, and no, I didn't see them anywhere. So it would have been nice to have some though. But all right, before we get started with the chapter tonight, I got a couple of questions. First question is, how many of you got a text message / email from me today about things going on, and how many people are upset with me about that? Jump in the comments and talk to me. How many of you got the text message I sent out earlier, or / email? It was the same thing. And how many of you are unhappy tonight? Talk to me. Okay, a couple of you got it. Anybody want to talk about that? Questions about it? Yeah, Audra, I'm sad too. Yeah. Rebecca McQuinney did not get it. Joyce, I'm asking because I generated a lot of hate mails today, so I'm just trying to figure out where all these people are coming from. So, oh, Linda Burkholder got it. All right, very good. Linda, any word from the Linda? Any word from the books today? Did Linda Burkholder, did the book come your way? I'm multitasking. I'm real good at that. There you go, Becky. Becky McQuinney is coming your way. So Linda Burkholder is going by phone. Okay, not yet. All right. But Linda Burkholder is in the house. So, all right. Well, just know that we're doing the best we can to try to get open. But we're, if you look in my email or the text or whatever I sent out, there are some links in there. I know some of the links don't work in the text because technology is stupid. But okay, Becky, you need to get on and the website and re-sign up. MailChimp is a great program, but for some reason, most email programs recognize it as spam and kicks it out. So check your spam folder, see if it's there, or your deleted file or something. But text message coming your way. There's a lot of regulations that we have to meet before we can meet back together. And just given some of the things we're working against, we just don't feel like it's the best time for us to try to come back inside. So I will say we ordered a new component for the computer, which means two things. I pray. Everybody pray. Please, God, make it mean two things. First thing we want it to mean is that we'll be able to live stream. So, just pray that that little component does what it's supposed to do. And because Pastor Tim is learning a lot of stuff about technology that he never wanted to know. So, all right, good. All right, well let's talk about chapter 1. When you believe in God but don't really know Him, that's where we're going to be. As I told you last night, I'll remind you tonight. My plan is to do these, chapters. I'm sorry, I just lost the ability to speak English. 2 nights per chapter. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to figure out how to do, and which means if we follow that path, by my estimation, we should be done on June the 12th. So we'll be doing the Christian Atheist from now until June the 12th is the plan. So, yeah. All right. So anybody got any preliminary comments about this chapter? Any follow-up stuff from the introduction last night? Anybody got anything you want to say starting off? Anything about this chapter resonate with anybody? All right. Well, you guys think about that. Let me start introducing the chapter. He starts off with the story of how he met his wife, which is a very nice story. The first thing that he found out about his wife Amy is that she was weird like he was. I don't know if that's a ringing endorsement. I don't know that I would be terribly thrilled with that, but that's first thing they told her. And yeah, he did have some very nice things to say about his wife. And yes, it is a good wake up call for anybody who's snoozing at the wheel. So okay, so talks about their relationship. Honestly, nothing groundbreaking here. Everybody kind of had that when they started off pursuing their wife, and. But then in the second section, and I'm going to do the best to, if I neglect to give you page numbers or try to give you some indication where I'm at, start jumping in the comments and getting on my case about it. But I'm right under the subheading that says believing versus knowing on page 33. Under the subheading believing versus knowing, for those of you who want to follow along, it says the second sentence says, actually the first two sentences say, a recent Gallup poll reported that 94% of Americans claim to believe in God or a universal spirit. Good, I guess. However, a quick glance at Scripture and our culture makes it plainly obvious that nowhere near 94% actually know God. So my question I made on this sentence is, what do we see going on in the world today that makes us doubt that 94% claim? 94% of the people polled in this Gallup poll, and Gallup, you probably all have heard of Gallup polls. They're probably the most reputable polling organization out there. And so if they say 94% of whatever their polling section was said that they believed in God, then I'm sure that's what they were told. However, if you look around, there may be, shall we say, a little evidence to make us doubt that 94% number. So I'm asking you, what do you see? What do you see going on in the world today that makes you go, 94% said they did? Seriously, 94%? 94%. Anybody got a problem with the 94% number? Anything you see that may make you doubt 94% of people who claim to believe in God actually do? Anybody? I know there's a little bit of a lag, but Jack, when that Luddy card arrives, I promise you it will be featured on a live stream in the evening. I honestly I cannot hardly contain myself till that gets here. I'm excited. So, all right. So we got a few things here. Lack of church attendance, I think, is a very good indication because I don't know that we can claim even here in the wonderful town of St. Mary's. I don't know that we can claim 94% church attendance. So that's definitely a problem. How people live, how they treat each other, their priorities don't line up with what they say in a much more general way. Teresa, I absolutely agree. Gene says actions speak louder than words. That you show them by their fruit, and we're not. I again completely agree. We're not seeing the kind of fruit we would expect to see. Trina Child says 94%. Too much hate. Yes. Yeah, because hatred takes a lot of forms. Normally, when we talk about hate, we want to think about racism and other stupid things like that. But hate takes a lot of forms, and we see a lot of it out there. I mean politics, and I'm just going to leave it right there. So it's easy to talk the talk, man. You're right. I prove to you every night for a whole hour that having your mouth make noise is actually not that hard to do. Look how easy I make it look. And so talking the talk is, as Joyce says, is extremely easy. I say Mike and Tina Bird say hate, greed, and division. 3 prime examples. People fear dying more than going out and living. Amen to that, Becky. That's that. Yeah, they do, and it's scary actually. Riots, people getting upset, protesting, and fighting whatever the cause is. Yes, believe in God, but they aren't Christians. Yes. Yeah, because I think it's interesting the way he presents the question. He says 94% of Americans claim to believe in God or a universal spirit. I mean, one of our slogans here for these live streams is we talk about a couple of these lines that we've got. One of them is I believe in a God with a capital G. I can't see myself wearing a T-shirt that says "Go Universal Spirit." I'm not that doesn't have the same ring to it. So, all right. Jess Ganner says she loves Cheryl Miller. I mean, let's be honest. Who does not love Cheryl Miller? Jess, that proves nothing because everyone loves Cheryl Miller. Cheryl Cuck says people do not have Jews and Muslims also believe in God. The rest do not necessarily practice any faith. Yeah, I think that's more what I'm getting at here is that a lot of people claim to believe in God. Choose God define God however you want. I don't see a lot of actions backing that up, which is what Amy says right underneath you. It's like all the people who say, yes, I know that, fill in the blank thing is bad for me. Yeah. How many cigarettes do we sell every year? How much alcohol do we sell? And it just, yeah, we all know that's bad for us, but knowing it doesn't change anything. So, Deb, treatment toward others. Yeah, we treat each other. I mean, when I say we, I don't mean us, even though sometimes things do get a little disrespectful. But, And that's one of the things I really miss going on right now is the opportunity to just be in a group. I talked about it a little bit on Sunday. When was the last time you were with a group of people and you had somebody telling us a story, a really engaging story that was about nothing? I mean, we've all heard people who, just telling a story and they kind of got a joke rolling off and everybody's like, yeah, start to laugh. And it's kind of this group experience. Man, when was the last time I got to do that? I mean, it's been so long since I sat with a group of people and just did stuff, and I hope that when the time comes that we get back to that we'll appreciate that opportunity a little more, because I think it's in those kind of experiences. Because remember, when you're sitting with a group, as long as the group is, engaging in wholesome activities, they are representative of being created in God's image, and that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and God loves that equally as much as we do, and so it's great to be able to be together. Yeah, Deb says treatment toward others. I think I already said that one. Scott says even Satan believes in God. I'm pretty sure we're going to see that reference in here, and he does. I mean, obviously, he and Jesus had a long conversation in the gospel. Tim says, I don't doubt they believe that there is a God, but most are not raised in the church or have read the Bible. They only know what they've learned from pop culture. Yes, and one thing about pop culture that you need to keep in mind, everything, not very often will I give you 100%, but I'll give you 100% on this one. 100% everything you learn from pop culture is always wrong. It's always incorrect somehow. That's why it's pop culture. When things are not wrong, when things are correct, we call them facts. We do not call them pop culture. So that's a bad place to learn anything. Val says closing churches. Certainly that's not a good look. And many people tend to only turn to God when they need help. That's true. And a lot of times they wait till it's too late to turn to God for that help. And then they want to blame God for not doing something. I see this in my job all the time. You got a failing marriage and they're ready to stab each other. And then they come in here and talk to me and expect me to be able to fix it. I'm like, you should have been here 3 years ago. I could give you some stuff to teach you how to respect each other. But now this thing's way too far broken now. And, that's what we want to watch out for. And I think one of the problems that we run into with this idea of 94% of people, claiming some kind of belief in God, even though you would never be able to tell that by the way that they act, is basically the next sentence or like two sentences. He says here, and this sentence I marked because I think it's worth discussing. So I'm throwing this out to you. Belief is not the same as personal knowledge. Belief is not the same as personal knowledge. Why not? What is the difference between believing something and personal knowledge? Can anybody give me an example of something that you believe and then something that's personal knowledge? Can anybody give me an example of the difference? The difference between believing something and having personal knowledge of it. Difference between believing something, having personal knowledge of it. And I'll give you an example while y'all are thinking about it. I believe that there is a thing called a Boston Marathon. I believe that it exists. I believe there are people who run it every year. I've never seen it. So I believe in its existence, but I know in order to qualify for that, odds are like literally less than zero that I'm going to do that. So I believe in it, but it doesn't affect me at all. However, I have personal knowledge of what a savage race is. I've done about a half a dozen of them, and I'm signed up for one later this year, and I can't hardly wait till it to be here. I have personal experience of what it's like to be 4 miles into a savage race and be covered in mud and having the time of your life. I know exactly what that feels like from personal experience. And I know what it feels like to be talking about how cool it is and have people looking at me thinking I've lost my mind and I should act my age. And there's like no chance that's going to happen. So, okay. Tina and Mike say, I believe in gravity, but I have personal knowledge when something falls on me. That's a very good example. Very good. I believe that pie looks yummy, but until I taste it, I don't really know. Okay. So you have a belief, but before you bite into the pie, it's all about, well, you get some ingredients and you mix them together and this happens. And everybody's like, that doesn't sound delicious at all. And you're like, here, try some of this. And it changes the whole thing. Exactly. Believe in COVID-19, but have not had it. I think that's very true. We believe in it because of the impact it has made on all of us, even though we don't, not everybody has had it, or we don't know that everyone has had it. And but we certainly see the impact of it. So we believe it exists in some form or another. Tim Dickey, I've been told that bald eagles exist versus I know because they've seen one. Yeah, I saw one just a few weeks ago. I was out running. Those are beautiful birds. If you've ever seen one, it's like a pterodactyl. The things are huge. Believe in God, but not seeing him in body. I don't know, Val. You know, I see what you're saying. We believe in God, but we've had experience with God too. Now, have I experienced God, standing in front of me? No, I don't know that I've experienced that. But I have experienced God at worship services. I experienced God evenings here with you guys on here. And, so I may not be able to describe what God looks like, but I can tell you what God is like from experience. And I think that's a distinction. So, and Tim says he knows they exist because he's seen one. We've all seen one. So, see him through others. Yeah, Val, you've had experiences with God, but you've not necessarily seen God in bodily form. And obviously, none of us are 2,000 years old. We weren't around when Jesus was walking the earth. So, all right, I think you guys got it. Now, one of the things that Craig goes on to talk about is he talks about different ways of knowing God and different ways of relating to God. He gives us 3 of them. And he gives a little bit of example for those of you who read the chapter. You got to read these examples. He talks about, let me look at my note here real quick. He talks about knowing God by reputation. He talks about knowing God from our memories. And then he talks about knowing God intimately. Now, knowing God by reputation can be problematic because if that's it, because in the if you know some, let's look at it this way. Suppose one of you were talking to somebody who's never attended church at Wayne Street, a friend of yours, somebody, whatever, and you're telling them about me. What you would tell them is, about me, stuff about however you experience me, whether you love me or hate me or whatever, you would talk about that to that person. And say, maybe you should stay away. Maybe you should come to our church, whatever, based on what you think about me. So while you all here know me personally, you've had experiences with me, conversations with me, you've seen me in action, you know what I'm capable of to an extent. But so you've experienced that. The person you're talking to knows me by reputation because they've not met me. They only know me based on what you've told them. That's knowing somebody from reputation. The danger of knowing people by reputation is reputations can absolutely be incorrect. So if somebody who did not like me, or somebody who had a bad experience with me, or somebody who thinks I'm an airhead, if that person goes out to tell somebody else about me, they're going to get a very different experience. The reputation they have of me is going to be very different than somebody who is very engaged at Wayne Street, enjoys what goes on here, loves being in church here. The reputation is based on the experience of another person. That's what reputation comes from. Somebody else had an experience they told me about. Therefore, that's what I know about them is based on what the other person told me. And that can be a very dangerous way to know God, because if you're talking to somebody who has a chip on their shoulder about God, or angry about God, or has some kind of warped view themselves about God, and they're telling you something and you're accepting that reputation, that can become a problem if if you see God as an angry, vengeful, wrathful being who likes throwing lightning bolts at people. Or you think God is judgmental and just waiting to come down on you. If you're going to get your reputation of God from a person like that's experience, then your idea of God is going to be seriously warped. So that's why reputation, not a good way to know God. God is best experienced. That's absolute given. The next thing he says is knowing God from your memories. He gives the example of a guy that he knew when he was in college, and they were good friends and did a lot together and all these. Cheryl, I think you may be overstating that just a tad. But we all know people from the past. I mean, I know people from churches I've served in the past, and I know people. I not I know my family. Well, I know them currently though, so that doesn't really count. Um, but we've all known people from the past. And in fact, I just got a text earlier this morning from a buddy of mine from high school. He and I have recently reconnected over text, and we haven't talked much in the last 20 years, but he's been texting me a little bit. I think he's got some things going on in his life, and we've been talking about some stuff. And so he and I are rekindling a relationship from our early 20s, now in our mid 40s. And and it's different now. It's funny. It was so funny. Actually, this is a great example. He was telling me about this motorcycle that he had that he sold because he was worried about wrecking it. And I was like, isn't it funny in our 40s we worry about that, when in our 20s we're never worried about that stuff. And so it's kind of funny we're talking about that now. But in our memories, it's funny when he and I talk about stuff we did in high school. Oh my word, the stuff that we remember. I don't know that it all happened, but man, was it fun. And that's the God of our memories. As a 45-year-old man, I don't want to relate to God the same way I did when I was 22. And I don't want to relate to God the same way as when I was 13. I don't want to relate to God the same way when I was 4. I always related to God in a way that was appropriate to my age. A 4-year-old should not, absolutely not, relate to God in the same way a 45-year-old man should. That should not happen ever. But however, if I today was still relating to God like 12-year-old me, I would not be able to do this job. I can guarantee you that. I couldn't sustain this. I couldn't deal with, all the stuff that I deal with on a daily basis. I wouldn't be able to do a live stream and talk about, capital G God for all the. I wouldn't be able to do that. So that shows growth. So if we only allow God to be what God was back in our teenage years, we never allow God to get beyond that. That's unhealthy. And y'all have seen people who do that. God is exactly the same to them now as he was, 30 years ago. I say that's bad. Not because God changes, because we change. I'll tell you what, my relationship with my parents and my Aunt Kate and my sister, it is extremely different today than it was 30 years ago. Why? Because they're different and I'm different. And that's the way it should be. If it's not like that, that's real bad. So that's why you don't want to lock God into your memory, because you won't know God currently. My friend and I, I'm not going to say that we're never ever going to play video games again, but if that's all we talked about was, punching people's faces in video games, which we did a lot of, I'll tell you, back in the day. As 45-year-old men, are we going to get together someday and do that? I certainly hope so, but that's not the cornerstone of our relationship anymore. Because he's married and got a couple kids, and I certainly moved on in my life too. And if it was the same, it would not be healthy. If he and I got together and acted like two 12-year-olds, he and I actually had a thing. We were in the nursery at my home church together, and why they did this, sometimes I don't understand this. But in the nursery, they had this box of toys that I still remember, and in that box of toys were bowling pins, and we would take the bowling pins out. I mean, he and I couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 years old, and we always chant "Unga Bunga" and hit the other kids with the bowling pins. I'm pretty sure that if we did that today, we would probably be arrested. But then it was whatever. I mean, that's what kids did, I guess, beat each other with bowling pins back in the day and yell "Unga Bunga" because I honestly don't know why, but it was super fun. But if we were still doing that today, that people get arrested for that kind of stuff. So things change, and I need to get some bowling pins in here. Sorry, I got distracted for a moment. Anyways, you guys see what I'm going for, though, about how people evolve over time. If you don't allow your relationship with God to grow over time, it's unhealthy, period. It is unhealthy. If you're relating to God 2 years from now the same way you are today, you're doing it wrong. And it's not because God changes. It's because we change. The world changes. The stuff right outside of this window here behind me changes. I mean, think about the changes of the last 2 months, guys. I mean, we don't look at anything the same way we did just 8 weeks ago, and how screwed up everything is now. And Matt, we're probably not going to start over, buddy. So, but you'll get the second half. We'll enjoy that. And Unga Bunga is the only thing that you've missed. So, all right. Yeah. Yep. Personally, yeah. The past is like a glass we look through darkly. Yes. And yeah, God is the constant, but because everything else changes, one of the things that I mean, a perfect example of that in our world today is the sun, the sun, the big ball of fire in the sky sun. The sun doesn't, I mean, it moves a little bit, but it doesn't move. Yet when we're watching it, it always looks different. I mean, the sun looks really different now than it did 8 hours ago. Why? Because our perspective changed. And over time, if your perspective on things don't change, I don't mean it has to get worse. It's supposed to get better. That's unhealthy. That's not knowing God, because that relationship is not growing. And everything that God designed, everything, no exception, anything that is designed by God grows. There are no exceptions. Bodies that God created healthy, they grow. Relationships that God created healthy, they grow. Jobs that God created healthy, they grow. Churches that are created and maintain health, they grow. I mean, everything grows. That's the way God designed everything to grow. And if your relationship with God isn't growing, then there's something wrong. There's something not happening correctly. So, all right, something to think about. All right, let's move on here. All right, now I'm on page 34. I'm under the subheading that says "Not knowing God." Not knowing God. You all see where I'm at? And, oh, look, it's infinity. You guys see infinity there? So under not knowing God, he's got some questions there at the front. Some of those are interesting to give some thought to. But he says, those are fair questions. And here's the sentence I want to throw out here to you. But, and I want you to take this sentence I'm about to read, and I want you to compare that to normal, average, everyday teachings about God, beliefs about God. Okay, or what, let's go back to pop culture and the bad idea that pop culture is. What does pop culture say about God? And how does that relate to the sentence I'm about to read? Ready? But believing in God is not all he wants from us. Believing in God is not all he wants from us. Let's do a true or false. I'll throw that out there. True or false? Believing in God is not all he wants from us. True or false? Believing in God is not all he wants from us. True or false? Believing in God is not all he wants from us. True or false? Believing in God is not all he wants from us. True or false? All right, getting a lot of truths out there. That is true. And let me tell you, I'll tell you something else. Pastor Tim, this guy here, believing in God is not all I want either. I want you to have more than that. I want you to have a lot more than that. Because look, I believe that, I believe all kinds of things. Believing doesn't change things until we act upon that. And that's the important thing. I also, I believe I should wear my seatbelt when I'm driving the Beetle around. That's probably a good idea. However, until that seatbelt clicks, that belief means nothing. It doesn't save me at all. But because my belief and my response to that belief, which means I grab the seatbelt and click it, that belief could actually, there was one point in my life it did save my life. I was in a catastrophic car accident in Columbus. I was rear-ended by a semi and totaled my car and like 4 or 5 cars in front of me. And they said the seatbelt saved me. I had a black bruise from the top of my belt clear up across my shoulder from that. The seatbelt's what kept me from going through the windshield when the semi rear-ended me. So I could have been just as dead believing in that seatbelt as I was alive because I clicked it on. So that's what you all need to keep in mind when it comes to God. Believing is a good start. I would certainly recommend that be part of what you're doing. But I'm pretty sure that believing it is not enough. Believing in seatbelts is not going to save you. It's the click that saves your life. And y'all better be wearing your seatbelt too. So, Gene says he wants us to grow in him. So it's false that believing in him is enough. That's true, even though there's a not in here. So you're right. Without the negation, it is false. So the idea is we need to act upon that belief. The seatbelt, our feelings about the seatbelt, our belief about the seatbelt, our love or hate relationship with the seatbelt does nothing until that buckle clicks. Once the buckle clicks, the game is changed. And I will wring your neck if I find out any of you are driving around without your seatbelt on. In love, of course. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I'll hurt you for your own good. All right, let's go on. I'm now on page 35. I'm in the paragraph that starts with my very actions revealed my lack of intimate knowledge of God. He's going on to quote 1 John chapter 2 here, and he quotes a verse that says, and this is something I hear with people who are struggling with coming to terms with what it means to believe and act upon your belief in God. And 1 John is kind of addressing that, where it says, we know we've come to know him if we obey his commandments. In fact, I think that question may have come up in one of the discussions we even had in this live stream, is about how do we know? You know, how can we know these things? Well, that's why we call it faith. We know it because we believe it, and we believe it because we know it. I know that's that's a clear example of circular logic, but the idea is that's what changes us. Does your belief change things? I mean, that's what he wants to know, because these people who claim to believe in God but don't know who he is, what they are is they're believing something that's not affecting them in any way. It's not really belief. It's hope. I don't know what to call it, but it's not doing anything. It's an unclicked seatbelt. That's going to be our theme tonight. So how do we know? I mean, how do we know it's affecting us? It says here, because we obey his commands. And I'll add to that and say that obeying God's commands, that big G God, by obeying his commands, that is how we demonstrate, that's how we practice what we claim that we believe. That clicking sound the seatbelt makes is evidence that we believe in the seatbelt. You know, following God's command, following God's word, being a part of what God is doing, you know, responding to God's call in our lives. All of those things are us demonstrating what we believe. And belief, all right, here comes one of these things that may have to go on this t-shirt we're thinking about. Belief that cannot be demonstrated is useless. Undemonstrated belief means nothing. It changes nothing. It affects nothing. It's worth nothing. Undemonstrated belief means nothing. In fact, I would question whether it's a belief at all if it's not demonstrated. You know, there's no, I mean, I don't mean to be very, very crass with this, but there is no coroner's report that's ever been filled out that said subject believed in the seatbelt. You know, that's an irrelevant detail at that point because that belief did nothing. But there are a lot of emergency room reports that say this person is here because of their belief in the seatbelt. See the difference? And I have no idea why I'm on the seatbelt kick tonight, but that's just the example I got going. Demonstrate what you believe, my friends, or the belief is nothing. And all right, we haven't mentioned Batman tonight, so I probably should bring that up. In the movie Batman Begins, when Ra's al Ghul is training Batman, one of the things that he says to him, now obviously Ra's al Ghul ends up being the bad guy. Bruce Wayne doesn't know that at this point. But one of the things that Ra's al Ghul says is the belief is nothing. The will to act is everything. I don't know that I want to get Christian teaching from a Batman villain, but I tell you what, that one will preach. The belief is nothing. It is the will to act. It's everything. And that doesn't make the difference. That is the difference. And if we don't have that, then we just know God, but that's an irrelevant detail. So, yeah, Teresa, our walk is our witness to the world around us. Matt Clements, where do we get the will? That is an outstanding question, my man. And where do I think it comes from? It is inspired by the Holy Spirit that is living and active in us. You know, when either at Pentecost or when the disciples were gathered after Jesus's resurrection, whichever John or Acts, depending on what story you want to go with, when the Holy Spirit was imparted upon us, so was a whole ton of motivation. And there was so much motivation that 12 guys went out and built every church on the planet that we have today. Friends, that is motivation. And that's where it comes from. God prompts, God elbows, God points, God commands. That's where it comes from. And that's why we have experiences like this one here tonight, is because I have found that God does a whole lot of motivating in groups. And I know we're not together, and boy, I just love to be with you guys tonight, but we can't be, and that's just how it is. But we're still in a group. We're still forming a community. There are 41 of us here tonight. And when we put that out there, God responds and says, here's what I want you to do. And Matt, I know as sensitive as you are, if God points a direction, I know you're going to hear it, buddy. Oh, my word. Did somebody beat me to the Yoda quote? Somebody beat me to the Yoda quote. Becky McQuinney, this is for you. Yep, do or do not. There is no try. I mean, how about this theology from Star Wars? The hands down greatest Star Wars movie ever made, The Empire Strikes Back. So you want to keep this in mind, because this is the difference between belief and nothing, is this. Do or do not. There is no try. So keep that in mind. All right, how am I doing? All right, I got 6 pages left I got to get to. All right. How much time do I have left? Oh, I got 15 minutes. We're doing good. All right. You're welcome, Becky. That one's for you right there. And I should mention that Becky McQuinney has a room in her house decorated completely in Star Wars, including a life-size Darth Vader costume that I'm extremely jealous of. And I just feel like I need to throw that out there. So, all right, Matt, let's go back to your question, buddy. Where do we get the will? Well, let's go on to the next paragraph after the one I was just in, where he says, we need to keep in mind that God's commandments are loving. We need to keep in mind that God's commandments are loving. The question that I'd like to put with this sentence is, how is knowing this, sentence, knowing that we need to keep in mind that God's commandments are loving, how does knowing that mean that we know God? How does knowing that we need to keep in mind that God's commandments are loving, how does knowing that part of knowing God? How is knowing that God's commandments are loving equivalent to knowing God? How do those two things fit together? How does keeping in mind that God's commandments are loving, how does that equate with knowing God? Well, Jesus, so you talk about a lot about loving each other. I certainly embrace that. Have you ever, let me give you an example to kind of help flesh this out. Have you ever, had somebody tell you, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Have you ever had somebody tell you that somebody else did or said something, and you're like, I don't believe they did that. I don't believe you. Now, you might not have come right out and said that I think you're a liar, but you're like, are you sure that that person did that? Are you sure that person said that? Doesn't sound like something they would say. It doesn't sound like something they would do. Based on my experience of this person, my knowledge of this person, I've never seen that from them. Have you ever had that experience where somebody tells you something that doesn't seem to jive? Well, if we know that God is love and love one another, and for God so loved the world that He gave His Son, and so on and so forth. Um, and somebody tells you that God did something that you're like, that doesn't sound very loving. God trying to hex somebody, or God trying to send a virus to kill off people in nursing homes. It just doesn't sound like God to me. It doesn't sound to me like how God does things. And so I question that. But the only reason I can do that is because I know God. I don't just believe in Him, I know Him. And the God I experience is not a God that says, I need to send a message here. Why don't we go kill a bunch of nursing home people? I can't do that. I can't buy that. And maybe some of you are do, and that that's between you and God. But I can't go with that. So but I can only say that because I know God. If I didn't know God, if I was some rando on the street and I didn't have a relationship with God I have now, or if somebody would have went to me when I was 12 years old and didn't know any better and said, God sent COVID-19 to kill off nursing home people because of reasons, I'd been like, wow, that's frightening. Which is why my fellow believers and my disciplers here, I got to tell you, be careful what you say. If you're having a conversation with another adult, that's fine. You can prod deep theological issues. I think you should be doing that, but be careful what you say to your kids. That stuff matters big time, and you don't want to plant an image in their head that's not consistent with what you know God to be. So, I mean, look at what you guys are saying here. Val says, love one another. That's how we know God. Tina and Mike say, by knowing His love is to know the relationship He wants with us. I mean, that's how it works. Becky says, demonstrating trust, which is certainly important. Loving relationship is not a demanding one ever, and that counts to more than just God, but that's certainly true. God wants what's best for us, again, which may not be what the world defines as best for us. Matt's is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. Yep, that's the statement that's never true. Tim Dickey says, will and willpower comes from what is emotionally important to us. That's true. We'll persevere for things that we deem to be important. Trusting God's promises, of course. Cheryl believes He has our best in mind. I certainly agree with that. And the loving God idea. So we all kind of see that, and that's how we know God, is because we have experiences with Him, and that's what takes our belief in God and turns it into an active, living, alive, nurturing relationship. Okay. Now, one of the things he says here in the next paragraph that I thought was interesting, that I marked because I wanted to bring it up with you guys here tonight, is he says, I'm still on page 35. I'm in the paragraph that starts with, God cares about how we live. I don't know, a couple of sentences down, he says, knowing God can lead to a positive lifestyle, but the opposite is not true. Let's flesh that out. Let's think about that sentence. Knowing God can lead to a positive lifestyle. I think all of us would say amen to that. Knowing God, notice he doesn't use the word believing. He says knowing God. Knowing God can lead to a positive lifestyle, can lead to bearing fruit in your life, to building disciples, or making disciples, which is the United Methodist slogan. I think most of us could say that. However, you can't flip that around. It doesn't work that way. Now, what does this sentence say if we flip it around? It says this: a positive lifestyle leads to knowing God. That's not true. That this is the literal cart before the horse idea. That if I do enough good stuff, I'll know God. Nope. Where do we learn? Where do we know God? We know God from Scripture. We know God from worship. We know God from prayer. We know God from interacting with other people who know God. That's where we get to know God. And having those experiences and having that growth can certainly lead to some very, very positive outcomes. No question. But if you think that you're going to get yourself right enough to know who God is through your own actions and your own willpower and your own work, I promise you, you are running on the eternal treadmill. You're never going to arrive anyplace. So you definitely need to keep that in mind. Knowing God can lead to a positive lifestyle, but a positive lifestyle does not necessarily lead to knowing God. So that's one where you can't get the cart in front of the horse. And actually, he continues this idea. I'm on the next page, page 36. I'm in the paragraph that starts with God is interested not only in our actions, but also in our hearts. I'm in that paragraph. Looks like next to the last paragraph, maybe he says, some of us try to earn God's acceptance without truly knowing his heart. Some of us try to earn God's acceptance without truly knowing his heart. This fails. This will fail. I have seen this demonstrated a couple of times through the years where somebody will decide they want to impress someone else, and they'll do something they think that person's would like, or they think that person will respond well to, but they don't take the time to actually know that person and make sure it's going to be received in the way it was meant to be received. And I have seen that go down in flames. It's the person, it's the introvert they throw a surprise party for. It's the kid who wants to take apart all of his toys, who's made to sit down and write on a piece of paper. It's it's the Sunday school class that thinks all 15 kids that are in it all learn and experience the same way, or any classroom, doesn't have to be Sunday school. People who think they know what's best without knowing the person they're trying to do it for. That leads to failure nearly 100% of the time. You need to make sure that you know who you're doing it for. We've all seen things where you throw a surprise party for somebody and somebody jumps out and screams surprise and the person runs the other way. I mean, we've, get on YouTube and watch some of those fails. I hate to say this, but I have laughed at a few of those. But something you want to know. I mean, somebody doesn't like to be the center of attention. It would not be a good thing to make them be in the center of attention. So some of us try to do that with God. Well, God likes to love things, and I love this, so here we go. And you got to really know a person or know God before you go in that direction. So, Tim Dickey says, I've met a number of people in my life who are very nice, kind, even charitable people who turned out to be atheists. So, yes, a positive life does not necessarily lead to knowing God. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Good works should be a result of your faith in God, not the cause of it. So, like buying clothes for a stranger and expecting them to fit their style. Yeah, we've all got that Christmas gift where we're like, thanks. Yeah, we hide it better than that most of the time, but we've all been there. So, all right, where am I here? Oh, I got 3 minutes left. All right, let me pick out one last thing I wanted to say here. Okay, I like this one. Skip over to page 38 for those of you who have books. Skip over to page 38. This is going to be the last point we're going to make. Tomorrow night, we're going to start with knowing God intimately. The very last paragraph on page, not the very last. It's the very last paragraph before knowing God intimately. The very first sentence of that last paragraph says, maybe we sort of know God. Maybe we sort of know God. Is it possible to sort of know God? That sentence kind of jumped out at me when I was a little earlier today when I was reading. Is it possible to sort of know God? Is it possible to sort of know God? What do you guys think? All right, you can say no, but Thank you, Val, and I agree. You can't. Say more though. Why does this not work? Why can you not sort of know God? I mean, I guess if you sort of know God, you're back to, well, I believe in Him, but I ain't doing nothing about it. Um, I'd like to know why doesn't that work? What is it about sort of knowing God that makes us not take seriously what it means to be a part of God's plan? Oh, Matt, I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. That's how you feel. Always searching to get to understand. That's your problem. Christianity has very little to do with understanding and has a lot to do with having faith. And if we're trying to struggle to understand how all this works, you're trying to understand a God who is infinite. You want to get your head screwed up. Try to get your mind around infinite, something with no beginning and no end. We have nothing in our world that we know of is infinite. And if we're trying to get our very finite mind to completely encapsulate something infinite, we are on a losing proposition. And that's why we call it faith. I'm putting my faith in a God that's, by definition, bigger than anything I could possibly fathom. So it's when we feel when we have heard or felt the call, but not accepted the invitation. Yep. So God, I guess, could be leaving the invitation on the table, but don't deny the invitation exists, because that's where you run into problems. Okay, no in between. There's if there isn't any gray area, there's not much. Would we want God to sort of know us? I'm going to go with a definite no on that one, Deb. Candy, you have to be all in. That's faith. Sort of is short of. That's good, Risa. Depends on where you're at in your walk. Yes, and that goes back to my comment earlier that if you know God the same today as you did a couple of years ago, you're not doing it right. Now, at 20, in my early 20s, I thought I was a very faithful person, and for a 20-year-old, maybe I was. But a faithful 20-some and a faithful 40-some should not be the same scale. Should not be measured by the same scale. Mike and Tina say you can sort of know him, and if you believe he exists, but don't necessarily can or want to build a personal relationship with him. Yeah, I think you're back to believing in him and not knowing anything. And again, it's very similar, but yeah, that's the idea. Why is it so hard to be a Christian? Because there's nothing that this world hates more than things that are good for it. Think about everything in our world that exists. This world hates things that are good for it the most. That is why, if we're talking about taste and pleasure of eating, compare celery with ice cream. Which one do we consider to be delicious? Why do we not have addictions to things like, grapefruit? We don't have addictions to that, but we have addictions to drugs, even though they destroy us. We have addictions to alcohol, even though it destroys us. We go buy cigarettes because they destroy us, and that's why, because we have this propensity for destroying ourselves. That's why it's hard, because there are a few things in this world we can do that's better for us than having faith in the capital G God. Nothing beats that as far as being good for you, and that's why the world is actively against it. That's why it's hard. So, all right, Dave agrees with Scott. Tim, no, not really. We could sort of know a celebrity, but we don't have a real relationship with them, so we don't really know them. Yeah, I know we're kind of mixing vocabulary here, but you guys got the concept. Val loves following God. Val, I have no question about that. Yes, we're a work in progress. You start there and you grow. That's right. Just like everything grows. My definition, I fully knew God in my 20s and my teens. But looking back on it, compared to where I'm at now, I would say I only sort of knew him. I know him better now. But at the time, I was doing the best I could based on where I was at that time. So, but there is growth. Again, because everything that's healthy grows. We are finite. God is infinite. Absolutely. Cheryl agrees with Cheryl. I'm assuming you mean Cheryl Miller. You got a couple Cheryls going on here. God is everything. Very good, Val. What does Cheryl Miller say? Yes, we're a work in progress. You start there and you grow. Yep, I agree with that. All right, very good. All right, I think you all got the concept here. All right, we're going to put a pin in it here. Tomorrow we will start with knowing God intimately, and we will finish chapter 1 tomorrow night. So you can kind of keep track of that. I appreciate you all being here tonight. Anybody else got anything else you want to say for the good of the order before we sign off here this evening? What else? Anybody else got anything? Anything you'd like to share for the good of the order here? Closing comments? Words of encouragement? Insights? Come on, somebody's got something here. What do you got? That's a good one. Amy says, give this video a thumbs up. Yes, please give this video a thumbs up. That keeps us relevant in the YouTube algorithm and helps people find us. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. Thanks, Teresa. All right, Val, very good. Thanks and good day. So I take it we will not get back to the church until phase 3. That is probably correct. And just because everything else is going on. So, and I am truly sorry about that, but just based on how much we're going to have to do and how much of the momentum we have going right now, we would lose trying to move back inside. The BLT has decided it's not worth it to us at this point. So we're going to be doing some scrubbing and cleaning here at the church to try to get ready. And there may be some smaller groups here. But that's it's just for now. We don't think it's possible. Celery and ice cream. What just came out of your mouth? I'm talking about why ice cream is delicious and celery is not. And I think that the fact that the thing that has zero nutritional value is what we would prefer is proof positive that this world is wired to destroy itself. So absence makes the heart grow fonder. That's good. Build an ark. Is it still raining outside? Is it still raining? And thank God for growth, Scott. I double second that. So, hey, speaking of gifts, I got a gift today. You guys see the gift that I got? This was a gift from. There we go. This was a gift from Diane. She was at Kohl's, says she thought of me. So this is a gift that I got today. I'm showing a lot of stuff on the live stream, but what do you guys think? I need to hang this up in my office too to go alongside my. My bat symbol is over there, so I've got some hooks in here to hang some of this stuff up. So you guys are spoiling. Whoa, you guys are spoiling me. So, all right, guys. Well, I think it's that time. I want you all to go hit the sack and get some sleep, and we all got work to do tomorrow. I love you all very much. Again, as I always say, you honor me with your presence. 40 people here right now. I think it's just fantastic. You guys are here. Yes, Joyce. The time comes when we're back in here. We will definitely have a actual real life look at my face reunion so that we can have this group know more faces than just this one. So, all right, guys. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with me. And I appreciate you being here. And come back tomorrow night. We will finish chapter 1 and continue on from there. So, everybody have a great night. Love you all very much. Go wash those hands.